My name's Zio, and I just finished the Endwalker main story quest line the other day. If you're new here, I primarily cover lore content for another game called Phantasy Star Online 2. I've had a couple days to gather my thoughts on my experience over the past week. I don't typically do opinion pieces on this channel since you know what they say about opinions and assholes, right? Well, guess what? This asshole is about to share with you some of his. Spoiler free, of course. You like my Reaper drip, by the way? All in all, I feel like this was a very well done expansion. I do have a few critiques though, which I'll get into here in a bit. Presentation wise, they really knocked it out of the park here. They did an excellent job wrapping up the long-running Heidel and Zodiark saga. They also did a really nice job tying up a number of loose ends. I thought it was really cool finally getting to visit a number of places that we've been hearing about for years now, like Sharlayan, Garlemald, Radz-at-Han. Going to the moon was also a real blast, especially with all the callbacks to FF4. It may not have been my very first RPG, but it was the RPG that really cemented my love for the genre. Final Fantasy in general was also a huge part of my life growing up. The story took a number of unexpected turns along the way. There were so many times where I was like, wait, what? No way, I was not expecting that. There was definitely no shortage of tearjerkers along the way either. So if you're the kind that gets emotional with these things, I'd recommend having a box of tissues handy. Some of the quests were kind of annoying though. Like there were a few where you had to follow an NPC around without letting them see you, and if they caught you, you failed and had to go all the way back to the starting point. There were some parts where you thought you were behind an obstacle like a tree or a rock and out of their line of sight, but they spotted you anyway. Another complaint I have is with the main antagonist that they set up for the end of the story. Don't get me wrong, the fight was cool, but the character itself was kind of weak in terms of character development, but that's my opinion though. It wasn't quite Final Fantasy IX final boss levels, but it certainly wasn't on par with, say, SHADOWBRINGERS. They wrapped up one storyline, but there's still a lot of the world that we don't know about. Like, what about present-day Mericidia? What's the deal with the 12? What about the other reflections? We ever gonna get to visit those? The music, as you might expect, is on point. It shows how much Soken has grown as a composer over the past several years. It's always done a really good job capturing the mood of any scene. The battle themes are also amazing. And of course there's no shortage of remixes from the previous games. The field areas and the dungeons were also great. I loved seeing a lot of old enemies and bosses from the previous Final Fantasies. Getting up to max level was also faster than before. Maybe a little bit too fast. I was already level 90 by the time I got to the last field area, and I did almost no side quests and maybe one leveling roulette, and that was it. This isn't necessarily a bad thing though. Now onto the elephant in the room, the login queues and the dreaded 2002. Yes, I realize that login queues and instability are par for the course for these things. This isn't my first rodeo. Then you have the human malware-induced chip shortage. Yeah, I get that. Then you have the surge of WoW people over the past several months, and you pretty much have a perfect storm. Between them and the returning player base, you pretty much have a double whammy here, or rather triple whammy if you count the hardware issues. That doesn't mean I'm absolving Square of any of the blame though. So I was reminded the other day that when A Realm Reborn came out, they froze digital sales because the servers were too packed, and they weren't anywhere near as packed as they are right now. The game's more popular now than it ever has been, and that's just within the past few months. So knowing this, coupled with the fact that chip shortage has been a thing for well over a year now, why keep selling pre-orders well past what their servers can handle? They knew exactly how many pre-orders they sold across all platforms, and yet they still kept pushing it. They had plenty of time to step back and say, yo, I think we need to pump the brakes on pre-order sales, even with the new player surge. I don't think this was Yoshi-P's call though. The buck may stop with him on a lot of things, but I don't think this is the case here. I think this was mainly a shareholder thing. Like, look how many pre-orders we sold of our flagship product. Never mind the fact that we sold way more than our server infrastructure could handle, and we probably won't be able to get more servers for a while yet. It just further illustrates that none of these big companies are above reproach. There's also talk of a class action lawsuit because of this whole mess though, but I don't think that's going to go anywhere. It's just unfortunate that there are so many people who want to play but can't due to their work schedule or what have you. Like they can only play during evenings or weekends, and that's when the queues tend to be at their absolute worst. On top of that, you can't even make a new character on any North American or European data center. I think there are maybe 2 or 3 EU servers that are still allowing new characters. It also sucks for people who have been playing for a while and maybe want to get their friends or family into it. Personally, I don't really have this issue. If anyone in my family plays video games, it's either shooters or some stupid phone game. I'm pretty much the only one who's really into RPGs. RPGs like Final Fantasy and more recently Phantasy Star because of this YouTube channel have always been an important part of my life. Phantasy Star Universe helped me with a breakup that happened around the time that came out. Final Fantasy XI and to a lesser extent Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 helped keep me busy in the months after my mom passed away. So how would I rate Endwalker? I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10. So what do you guys think? How are you liking Endwalker so far? Well, that's assuming you get past the queues in Error 2002. You know how much I love chopping it up with you guys in the comment section and on the streams. Just keep it spoiler free, please. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy Endwalker as well as the rest of your day, and remember, to thine own self be true. Until next time, farewell.